This may not be the ideal circumstances, but I am well on my way to getting home. I have made it to dry land. That is, I took a path that might have been bounded by an impassable river, and it is not. And I feel very thankful to the area, as I have been at other times, which I have made known to these trees, and for the great journey that I've had today, where, among other wonderful and poignant and very deep levels of vulnerability, where I think it'd be fair to, to say that, today, a step of my day was to be as vulnerable as anyone could ever be, and how that would feel, and how deeply you can feel all the angst and ill fever and ill temperament of this world, and be like, what? What? I don't want to be this vulnerable. I'm supposed to keep all that stuff out. I'm supposed to be invulnerable, right? And letting that all be vulnerable while you're outside with elk and deer and cougars. And I thought about this idea of being safe but vulnerable, right? How could you be safe and vulnerable, or safe being vulnerable, or be safe outside and also be vulnerable? And what a poignant thing it had to be for me, because that's basically all I had. Is I have honesty. I was like, well, okay, I'm in shock, and it's like, whoa, I'm really vulnerable. I'm really vulnerable. Like very, very, you would say very, very emotional, very, very, very emotional. Point of being extremely vulnerable and feeling every vulnerable thing I can feel, and talking back to sort of the bad spirits, you might say, in my life, and saying, you will be banished. I can feel everything I need to feel based on what I'm feeling right now, and I guess I'll do what I need to do with that, which is go and deal with my life, which is what you should do, right? Or what they should do. I don't know if you'll forgive me where to put the camera. I could put it over here, but I don't want to get up at this point. So let's see. How can we be lazy about it? Let's see. Without hurting anything, Landon, please. No unnecessary injuries to the local population. Oh, look, there's a little feather just to remind you, hey, thanks for not hurting us. We'll give you a feather. It's like a special star. Oh, you ruined it. You had it. Well, I'm worried about hurting this other thing here. Okay, leave it. I was thinking about, whether I should do something called daily witchcraft. And all these emotions came up to me, and I came upon a beautiful collection of flowers, which I noticed were arranged in a pentagon formation, and in fact had two sets of five among their number. And then I saw the pentagram on the inside, and I said some things that I needed. I admitted my vulnerability, as I did to the cows. I said, I welcomed, I said hello, but unlike people, I can also go to cows. I can go to great people of cows, and I just sort of looked around and said, can you help me? And the one cow nodded his head yes, or her head. This beautiful yellow one. And they nodded at me, and I stood there, and they sort of swished their tail, and, and I tried not to, stare or take too long, and then there was a sense of like another nod, and I said thank you, and thank you very much. And I looked around again and just sort of said goodbye with my eyes, and I left. And that's a part of my day. That's a normal part of a very vulnerable day where I chose to walk in this direction. And who did I meet but the cow people? And the elk were with me, the stamina and strength of the elk and of my mother. I cried for my mother and for Mother Earth, and I said, what are all these ideas about disconnection between the mother and the child, separation of the mother and child? What is of something being wrong between the mother and the child? And is there something wrong? And should we say if there is or isn't there? And we should celebrate that. There's nothing wrong between the mother and child. Why should we be suggested that this mother, our earth, and her child have any problems between them? We are not, the mother has no problems with us, her children. We are in a relationship. There is love between this mother and this child. And I was so thankful to her for connecting that back to me, connecting that deep in my vulnerability and saying, I haven't got enough love from my mother. I haven't felt enough love from this world. Where is this love? It is the earth. And I found these wonderful stones and I offered them to the pentagram, and also the stones confirmed the celestial nature of my exploits. And I found that very affirming, and I connected to people who, aunties or uncles who'd passed away, and I held a stone for them, and I felt like they were sharing their love with me at a celestial level. And the stones were very, very helpful to them. And as soon as my love just leapt from my mother from this entire ceremony, I reached down and picked up a pink rhodonite stone, or whatever it's called. This pink stone, beautiful quartzy pink. And I held that, you know, and I'm sitting on it right now. Right? And I'm going to bring it home for my mother. And then I say, hey, and I'm out there thinking, I really hope this does something. I hope this is good for something. I hope, like a man, that I can bring something better home to my family. I can bring the hearth flame. I can light the flame of love in my home. So I would take anything in the world as a young man, that my mother and father could live longer and have their hearts released. And I screamed and cried with such deep emotion that the earth heard me. There's little mushrooms over there, like little skirts of ladies, beautiful women of the world, working away like those little mushrooms, working through time. Our dear mothers. And what about our dear fathers? Do you not think that they too have been waylaid? That they have not suffered large? To keep their families safe from alcoholic mothers? Can you imagine what that's like for a man to have a wife who's an alcoholic, who uses the bank account to get even with you, and eventually your children as well, and destroys your entire home, and has every reason to, because she was raped when she was 5 years old, and you probably don't treat her the way she wants. And it may be that nobody could, but that's just the way it is. Now, I love my mother. And out here, it's okay to seek the truth. Because out here in my daily witchcraft, I always honor the child inside myself. And I honor one very big thing about children that you might like to know at a celestial level, that as children, we know right from wrong better than most adults do. Children have a wonderful mind. If the Jews want to study the Torah, if the Christians want to study the Bible, study the conscience of a child and respect it. Or rather, study your own children. Don't, let strangers study your children. Be they Jew or Gentile, if I am president, nobody will study your children but you. You notice how I was kind of both a Jew and a Gentile? Because I am a bit of a Jew and a Gentile. I'm my father's son. A bit of a Jew and a bit of a Gentile. If you look at my siblings, like my sister, my younger brother, they're really good with money. They're very professional. They're really good at their jobs. They help people. And they're really kind of culty and weird about money. And I bless them. It's like part of their heritage. In this way, I'm my mother's son, right? Who's learned to think of money like the leaves that flow through the seasons. I'm not quite as bad as my mother, but I do kind of live by the seat of my pants. I live through energy. And I think that could be interesting to other people. Like I think of I can feel things, I can see things, I can be paranoid. and then I can feel deeper. And like, even if it's not about this person this much, maybe it's something like something, 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 something. And you know what? Your emotions always know where to go. There's a drain inside of you, and you follow your angers and your irritations. A therapist could do this and find out what is really bothering you without dismissing, say, the top other three things or people who are total cunts, who are abusive maniacs in your life. Okay? But then also, without dismissing that, but also like what else is there? And not never dismissing the other three. Like what is similar that also has a vortex in your life. And then is their mom there? Is their dad there? Not to be cliche, but like anything and anyone, if, or you want to say family in general, hasn't been so helpful, And I think because I say this to respect people because I think a lot of deeply emotional people have those things all the time, and would love it if there was a word, as I would have, that said, "Oh, you're just this kind of person dealing with the world that everyone deals with, and you're the kind of people who have a kind of talent and a kind of affliction when it comes to feeling things really deeply, and maybe it'll be useful for the world intellectually, and maybe it never will. But the priority is taking care of yourself. Whether someone understands your nature or not, you have to go somewhere and live some way that you can learn your fucking nature, and that's scarier than learning about your dog. That's like, whoa. I mean, how many suggestions are there in the world every day about what you might be if you started thinking too deeply about what you are as an animal? Or, do you think you're going to be like Peter Lorre in the 50s German movies who's going to start wanting to hump every woman like a werewolf? Like, woo! Like a shadow creeping up on him as Germany, or in the 40s as Germany was creeping up on the world. Okay, the sun's coming up. Okay, I think I should pack up and then I can get out there and I don't have to be so cold. Because cold is the enemy. And then I've been so nicely accommodated in this wonderful little Bowery that I found, I think, rather intelligently, and with a little modesty and a little patience and whatnot. Maybe I sound a bit gay, but I don't care. This is daily witchcraft for one. Now the rain has slowed down. I'm going to get my stone. I also have a lovely stick companion, which I brought with me, which I thank you very much. It's very helpful because today, I really needed a stick. All right. Back it up, back it up, back it up. Back it up, back it up. Back it up. There we go. Now I must find my way out of this Bowery. This place of rest and restitution, where I begin my journey back home. Whoa, and we've got a camera, and we've got a hat, and we've got a stone, thank you. Whoa! And we've got a stick, thank you. And we've got possibilities, because maybe I can just walk right through here. Just, okay, take your time, take your time. Take your time. If you want to be respectful in nature, you just take your time. It appreciates that you take the time because there's a mushroom down there that no one will ever see. Whoop, let me. Yippa. Oopa. Oopa. Okay. Alright. Oh. What? 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 Whoa. What? What? Alright. Now I'm going to acquaint you back with reality. If reality exists for us anymore. There we go. I don't know what you think about the reality here, but I think that was pretty topsy-turvy. Okay, well. Now, this is interesting. I got the journey home, nice enough, but now I'm thinking of walking back for a little bit, maybe, since I've found my destination, because I've made great time today, and just get back out on the gravel and just linger. I'm just gonna loiter for a while. I don't want to leave. This is just been too wonderful a day. Now maybe just go into a different mode. Got energy. The day is young. I just really needed to release, I guess. It's like, the thing is, you don't know how much you need to do. Like, my throat feels like it's had a stretch. Like, this is a deep, full throttled vulnerability. Like, I think I did something today. Like, you don't want to hurt yourself. I feel really like there's a tendency to all emotions, and maybe there's a tendency at some point where you need to kind of be really vulnerable to cleanse yourself out. And that was today for me. It's today for me a lot of days, actually, quite honestly. It's sort of a little bit like what I do. I'm trying to decide. Let's go this way, because I'll get out of view of these houses. I've got my stone, got my hat. Why? Does that look like an S to you? Do you see that? There's actually an S on that stone, and it's like a sun, and there's like an ice, and it's like a road leading into a big head in the mountains. Like maybe like an owl or a squirrel or something. Or, well, maybe it's like R2-D2. Okay. You've been ruined. Mythology of self for one. Mythology of self for one. Mythology of self for one. Self for one. Self for one. Self for one. I myself has so long become, I hope, a part of a sacred song. And by myself I found my way to give everything I could to my mother and my father, that they live long as me and my home and their own on earth should always live so free. You see what kind of day it is? I work so hard. It's gotta be for something. You know, please let it be for something. Every day, I just hope it's for something, you know. My mom said, I was doing myself, a little attaboy about a book I wrote. It's actually about alcoholism. I said, oh, Mom, editing my book on abnormal psychology, I think I should get the Nobel Prize, I think I'm the most amazing writer. I said, do you understand? It's a very difficult. He said, you should publish it and get all the emulation you deserve. And I said, no, you mistake me. I don't mean to be argumentative, but which is always a danger talking to women, that you could be argumentative. I don't know. Maybe that's true. You got to be careful of that, man. But I don't want to be argumentative. But I'm going to take the opportunity of this moment, if I may, under these conditions, to say that that's precisely the point. Is that this is not the kind of, it's as substantial as it is, and I think as good as I am at talking about it, it's really, quite rightly, not something people want to hear. They don't want to hear about how their minds work according to me, what it looks like to me. Because I say things like, everyone's been sexually molested. And how do you take that in? What is a good way to hear that? Students all over the world be like, Professor Landon, I'm being a little delusional here, but Professor Landon, someone out there's like, a little. That's the understatement of the century. And that's funny. But save your satire for the classroom. We're outdoors now. We have to behave like savages, which means well, better than God. You only behaved good. You should behave great. And believe me, God isn't much that's good. So You have to stretch that definition so much. It's like, whoa, for God to be good, that's a stretch. That is a biblical stretch. I mean, we got to push that stretch around. I think that stretch is what's really getting people down. The stretch that God tries to say inside the word good. And he's standing behind the Hollywood sign going, hey, look, it's good, it's good. It's all so good. It's, God said it was good, so it's good. If God said heaven was good, I wouldn't trust it. If I was in heaven and God's like, don't you see, Landon, it's good. And I'm like, fuck off, God. You ruined it for me. I'm just going to go back to earth and have some agony so it makes heaven better again and gets the taste of you out of my mouth. Oh, Landon, you always were that way. Lucifer, I was thinking today, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, is the cold star, or Sirius. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Like the Isa and Mona Lisa, and I said it also is the eye, it also is ice, it also is money. And the cold star would be Sirius. I think Sirius is a perfect contender for a kind of star, like a Death Star, maybe to some people, and maybe to the most sacred star in the world. You notice how certain very sacred concepts are often misused, so that they paint certain things in a worse light than they probably should be. In almost every area, you'll find that. In fact, it's a way that I study culture anthropology. I look at the English language. I look at how we talk about things. Maybe I would say, when I take notes to myself, I'll say, oh, I want to achieve this, but, not the word, but the spirit of what it really means. I want to look at the loss of innocence in the world, but I don't like the word innocence, just the spirit of what we really mean. And is it something that just happens to people, or is it like a financial loss? Do we ever lose our innocence? And if not, what do we mean when we say what we do? Do we lose access to it? What is it really? Isn't it not the bravest, surest mind that any child ever had? And again, questioning, for me, very, 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 very terrible. Very, very terrible. Very, very shocking. A way that I was delivered from childhood to adulthood. And you might say it was never successful. You'd say it was an abortion because, it's like yesterday, I just want to go and get in my dad's truck and do whatever my dad wants me to do. And the thing is that I'm not a stupid boy at all. And nobody thinks I am. But they don't realize that I'm not a completely white boy either. I am in the sense that I'm like a native white person. I just want to work with my family. I want to be with my family. I want to do something that directly benefits my family. I'd be perfect if I lived in a family that had a general store and we lived about it because, we were all contributing every day and we got to be around each other and we could all talk and enjoy each other's company, because to me, my dad would say things like family is everything, but it didn't look like it was, because we were never even really connecting that well. And so in the irony, if you will, of my dad's work, and what sometimes I probably called in less generous times the deceptive nature of my father, or even the psychotic or psychopathic nature of my father, I saw something kind of twisted or hypocritical about what my dad called family and what he was willing or not to expose his family to, and mainly himself. And his lack of restraint, though, becomes a little more innocent, a little more forgivable when you see the provocation of my mother. Inasmuch as she is delivered from evil, from the provocation of her semi-adult brother raping her. And so how are we to deliver everyone from all these sins with all of these reasonable provocations and so forth? And it's troubled me all of my life since I was a child. Really, I think, if I may say, because I think it is a tension in the world. It is an irony, I would say, of my father's words, in that what he troubled himself to do to protect his family put him in the way to hurting, things. Hurting things. There was hurt. There was a lot of hurt. And it put me in a way to really notice it and really feel it. Unfortunately, accidentally interact with it. And get the worst end of it. This kind of family evil. You just wander your whole life, whatever you're doing. And I've been really lucky, I guess, in some respect. And not in others. And you're that kind of person that just wants an answer. You know that something is wrong. You don't go on and live your life and say, whatever, it's just life. No. You're just that person who wants to find the answer. You have to know. You have to know that maybe you're not crazy. That it's okay for everyone out there to tell themselves your emotions don't make you crazy. They don't make you crazy, and they never did. Emotions don't make people crazy. Don't worry about that. Talking to yourself doesn't make you crazy at all, any more than writing in your journal makes you crazy. It's just like in a world of media and phones. I remember the first time I heard someone on a earphone or something. And I did, honestly, I listened, I thought they were talking to themselves, and I thought they were crazy. Right? It was like, oh, fuck. I felt better, though, when I realized what it was. It's like, because it just caught my attention, right? So, I try not to let people hear me talking to myself, because I don't want to freak them out. If I get going, sometimes I do stumble into the other world, the audience range of the average person, which doesn't include anything like the sound of a person, because it's not like I'm really talking to someone, but in a way I am. It's like if you walked around, you found Tom Hanks talking to Wilson, and you're like, hey Tom, he's like, hey, this is Wilson. So Wilson, about our mother and the unfair prostitution of the human race by the Black Madonna fashioned her in her image. And you talk to Wilson like that? I thought Wilson was a boy. That's not age appropriate, Tom. Hey, hey, I was in that short movie, Big. It's like The Big Short. I danced on the piano, man. I got a little bit of a New York accent. Hey, what about it? Tom Hanks. Blow his nose with one of his hankies. Okay, that's enough about Tom. Although, I would think that hating Tom Hanks would be... There should be a movie called Hating Tom Hanks. I bet you Tom Hanks is going to listen and think, hey, that's pretty good. Hating Tom Hanks. It's like, who hates Tom Hanks, right? And then what it will do is it'll seal the fate of anyone that ever wanted to hate him, because he'll already have a movie about it. It's like, they'll be searching the world to find someone who hates Tom Hanks. No one's ever like, I hate Tom Hanks. Choppers. Do you wonder if maybe celebrities go around in choppers just to look at the local population, and that they have access to jammers that can pick up people's YouTube channels, because in fact a lot of people talk to themselves in the bush and carry electronic devices with them, and how fascinating would it be to have access to those conversations? I want to hear every jabbering solitary person in the world shoved in my ear. Come on, what does it sound like? I think it would sound like dolphins and whales. That's what I want to think about it, because I have a lot of respect for that level of the human mind. I call that celestial. I think the sound of every human being, honestly, in any kind of pickle on this earth, any kind of, which is not any, in life, in time, in your birth order, it doesn't matter, anything that you can feel on any level, anything you can imagine, your voice is part of the whale song of this earth. Your voice when you are alone and just nothing but honest with yourself. And there are some strange rooms and some strange places and basements and places that a boy or a girl can end up here and there, just trying to keep a roof over their head and keep life feeling relatively okay until, the next thing happens that takes them forward in their destiny, and hopefully away from, they don't need to read Dante, the kind of hell that they instinctively know you have to be delivered from. You need like some celestial mother and father to deliver you from this place. You need to be lifted out of the crib of hell and picked up by a new mother and father to hold you and say, oh, you just had a nightmare, and put you in and love you and never ever hurt you ever again. All right? And the brain needs that, right? One may scoff, but you don't want people to suffer, right? You would accept anything that would help people stop suffering. Why shouldn't we give that to suffering people? Why don't we lift them out of the cradles of hell? Hey, like good mothers and fathers. Better yet, why don't we acknowledge the knowledge of how to do that? Because I think it lives in all of our voices. I think it lives in us. I know this phrase can be used in some sort of religious, jargon-esque kind of way, but what when we talk about what lives in us, could it not be a likely candidate among things that we are most needful of? I think we need our voices to matter. I think we need our voices to wind with the celestial music so that we know that they mean something, so that we know that we have a say in the turning of the spheres. And that it would be perfectly sane to also suggest that that would mean nothing to the general population, who are to be forgiven and commended for the enormously financial exploits which they undertake to call their entire reality until they get a break from it and take a chance in another entire reality, which also lives in the world. And they can have mutual coexistence. Okay? So no one's starting any wars here. People are just walking around talking to themselves. No one has time. I ran into Trevor today, and he goes to the river for the same reason I do, but his own personal, respectfully, his own personal needs. And that is a sacred dude to come across. He's a good, strong energy. He was the elk for me today. He was the elk, I think, that I met today. It was Trevor. What an interesting thing that I haven't seen him for months and months, and then I come out here to see the elk and I run into him. And he just got me thinking, walking this way. What a wonderful man. Just, not that he was conscious of it, but he's not in a coma either. So I think I like people influencing me. If I sense so many bad people, and if I see a good person, it takes a little faith to let them influence me. Let them, see the turn of my mind. It's like, I was talking to him, it's like, I'm talking to you about the elk making me think I might give it a go. And he said, yeah, I live up that way and whatever, and thereabouts. And he just sort of gave me a bit of his wisdom in the sense of like his learned relationship to the area. And just his confidence and stuff is infectious. And it's such a nice experience when you're around a decent person. And things that are infectious are really good things. I don't get to be around really infectiously healthy people. Like, bring me the infectiously healthy people, and then my life will be over. I'll be great. Like, oh, how did you do it? Well, people whose health is completely infectious. Nothing else can infect me again. And if you're a baby and you're a child, that's what you want. That's what you get from your parents. Uninfected love, or infectious love. The love that really gets you. And someone like me, I don't like to say something if I don't have to. It's not nice to say I don't have family close. My mother is always close to me, and daily I work to have my father closer to me as well, to complete my home and to complete my purpose. What little temple I can erect out of the daily agonies I undertake to call my life, or my way of knowledge. I wrote for a long time. This is like a different realm entirely of, I guess, the kind of aptitudes and desires I had by writing all the time, which weren't necessarily to get published, just to keep organizing my thoughts in some way, because I felt that was good for me. What a crazy idea. What a crazy idea. In hope that I wasn't like going to turn 50 and speak gibberish and be a crackhead, because, writing is, it's not like probably people don't look at their children and say, what's he doing? Oh, he's just like constantly